You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Global Trade This Week. I am your host, Doug Draper, and my co-host from across the country is my good friend, Pete Mento. Peter, how's it going?
It's going great, my friend. How are you?
Yes. Yeah, it's good. You know, the beauty of Labor Day or Memorial Day, both really, but Memorial Day is not only do you get an extra day, but the week is shorter. So it's like a double whammy. So yeah. I'm pretty stoked about that. So
yeah. You know, it doesn't feel like a Wednesday, does it?
Nope, it does not. It does not. So for the folks here in Colorado, Pete, I don't know what's going down, but it's like 49 degrees and it's raining again, and we got 4 to 12 inches of snow in the mountains last night. So I don't. it's mind blowing. I need summer. I need sun.
You know, I hate summer, so that's fine. It's dark and dreary out. It's foggy. It's in the 50s right now. I love it. Bring the Mordor every day. It can be like this every single day, buddy. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I like frog and turtle weather. That's what I need.
No, can't. It's been cloudy in Colorado for about 36 hours, and I'm about to lose my mind. I'm like, what are we living in Seattle? Where's the sun? And it's been a day and a half.
So. No, but Doug, you're never like the tanned guy. I never get on the show and I look at you and I think to myself, there's a dude that just slathers himself in coconut oil and sits in the backyard with a cold Sixer or a Budweiser listening to his Leonard Skinner CDs,
No, that was back in the day. That was my time in Tawtown. When I was in Wichita, that was, you just checked a lot of boxes.
Did you just call Wichita Tawtown?
Yeah. Apostrophe T-A town.
All these years, buddy, I'm never going to get it. I'm never going to get you.
Well, for those, if you know, you know. So IF, whatever that acronym is. So if you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. But speaking of if you know, you know, I think folks are here to listen to us rant and rave about global trade. And we're supposed to talk about it this week. And so I will let you kick us off.
Thanks, buddy. Well, this week, I mean, we've gone far too long without me ranting and raving about Ukraine. And we've gone far too long without me somehow bringing food and agriculture into this. So, hey, here I go again. The food crisis and the way that everything just sort of comes together, right? So you've got the war in Ukraine, the price of oil, and how all of that sort of mingles into one another to create what is coming in to be maybe one of the most brutal impacted food crises that we've ever seen. So to put the microscope on it, you have the cost of fuel and the cost of energy and how it impacts crops. Fertilizer, fuel being an important part, diesel and energy being an important part of how we create modern fertilizer. You know, back in the good old days, we used anything, garbage, waste, human waste, animal waste. And of course, we would use everything from dead fish, right? We would use fish carcasses, to just mulch and compost. But now we've really taken that turn to where a lot of normal fertilizers are coming from dead dinosaurs from a long time ago being distilled. Well, because there's a whole lot more money to be made in distilling that stuff into jet fuel and gasoline and diesel, it's being diverted into other areas, which makes the actual cost of fertilizer just going through the roof. And it means that in a lot of places where you need this stuff, like the third world, it's just out of reach. So crops are getting more and more expensive to actually produce. The cost of transporting crops absolutely blown through the roof because of the cost of fuel. Yes, we have blockades in Ukraine, which means that you have a huge portion of grains, a huge portion of all of those, absolutely dependent grains, whether it's the wheats of the world, et cetera, that aren't in circulation, which raise the cost of everything else. So are you going to keep them home side for your own people, or are you going to try to export them? You try to export them. You try to make the money on those rather than keep them in circulation for your own people. Doug, we have a global crisis. And if you remember, early on this year, in part of my prediction shows, I talked about Ethiopia. I talked about Somalia. I talked about parts of Western Europe where we were going to see, regardless of this, a real food crisis happening. This is going to bleed into other parts of sub-Saharan Africa, other parts of Western Africa, parts of South America. You're going to see food crisis. You're going to see young people dying. You're going to see this turn into possible civil unrest. This is bad, 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 bad.
All right. Well, that's a hell of a kickoff. But, when you were talking, and I love when you and I make older references because our younger audiences are like, what are those old guys talking about? But the ones that are our age get it. So there was a commercial back in the 70s, or in the 90s from BASF. And it basically said, we don't make the products you buy, we make the products that you buy better. And that's relevant because it's not the food itself, it's the fertilizer and the materials needed to grow the food. So it's not like they're trying to export Twinkies across the country. It's more profound than that because, or across the world, it's more profound because the fertilizer and the fertilizer grows a lot of different crops. And so my whole point is that if Americans and the people are saying, well, they don't really grow that many commodities in that part of the region, that's exactly right. But it's the stuff that grows things elsewhere is what's so impactful. And I think that you nailed it. The other thing is it's a global crisis. America. And remind me to tell you about the analogy I have with 15 feet versus 50, 15 versus 50. I won't dive into that now. But the U.S. represents 5% of the world's population. And so if it's not right smack dab in front of our face, sometimes we don't recognize it. But I think you just nailed it by referencing the situation that's potential in Africa and that we don't see it, but that doesn't mean there's not a global crisis because of that keyword global. So yeah, it's kind of under the radar per se because people is they don't make much stuff in that region, but they sure make some key components to make the foods that we eat better.
Yeah, man, that's a tough situation to be in. And I think we forget that, every humanitarian crisis kicks off other humanitarian crises. And it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. The hardest part of all of this is knowing that it hits the people most economically disadvantaged. They're the ones that are going to the brunt of this is going to hit them the hardest, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Come on, man, give me something happy.
Well, I don't because I was taking, so my first topic, I was going to take a term that you've used in the past called the death of hope. Mm-hmm. But it's not quite that bad, but it's the death of hope related to speed delivery style, right? So I'm talking about the hype of the uber fast delivery. Before it was just get my stuff in 3 or 4 days, I'm cool with that. And then when Amazon hit the street, 2-day delivery at no additional cost. And then it was the 1 day. And now primarily in the grocery industry, everybody wants within the hour, 15 minutes, you click it and you ship it. And I think that what's going to happen is faster is not really the best way to go. And I think consumers are going to realize that, primarily because the conscientious consumer is going to prioritize the environment over speed. We talked about that in last week's episode. But do you really need something in 15 minutes or 1 hour when you could either go to the store and get it? So I guess my whole point is that I think that the passion around how fast can we possibly deliver it and the startup and the flourishment around startups around that industry is going to start tapering off. I think you're going to see some regional, hyper-local companies that said, I'm going to do a delivery service for this 15-minute window, and I'm going to crush it, and then I'm going to get purchased by some bigger company, and I'm going to go kick it on the beach and drink Mai Tais. I think you're going to see a lot of those startups starting to crumble. I think the consumer demand is not going to continue to push for a 1-hour delivery. And really, here's my take, Pete. I'm going to get kind of blunt on this one. If you're under 30 and you need your mustard to put on your hot dog in 15 minutes, you're lazy. And if you're over 30 and you need mustard for your hot dog, then you're a poor planner, and you probably need to revisit your life about how you're living as an adult, because it's just comical. And for anybody to think that they can get a car or require somebody to get into a vehicle to get your mustard in 15 minutes, you're not understanding the big picture and how we're all interconnected. So I think people and consumers are going to change that mindset. I think the uber fast delivery is going to peel off, and I think it's going to be more realistic. So that's the death of hope. If you're into fast, 1 hour delivery, I think that market is going to decline, and you're going to see some cool startups that are going to peel off to the side.
Well, Doug, I'm with you, and I'm not with you all at once. Here's why.
All right.
I think that America has spawned a generation of Veruca salts. Do you remember? do you remember Willy Wonka? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want it now. I don't care how. Right? I want an Oompa Loompa now, Daddy. And then Veruca looks at Wonka and says, "All right, Wonka, how much for one of these Oompa Loompas?" And Wonka looks at him and says, "They're not for sale. They're my friends. What's wrong with you? They're sentient beings, you scumbag. I don't sell the Oompa Loompas. They love it here. This is where they work." Everything's got its price, Wonka. No, and Veruca just loses her shit. She's like, "I don't care how, want it now."
Yeah.
We live in an environment where Americans cannot conceive that their every whim, desire, and delight cannot be dealt with at this moment. I think you're really underplaying the fact that when you look on your phone and it says LTE instead of 5G, people have a conniption fit. When you're on your phone's your phone service instead of the Wi-Fi, well, that's just simply not good enough. When you go to a restaurant, if they don't have Wi-Fi, the level of just obnoxiousness that we have cultivated amongst ourselves, generation by generation, we have somehow in 3 generations gone from a civilization that went from, let's just be frank, stalking, killing, and processing most of its own meat, to being annoyed if it can't turn up at the door with extra sauce. I'm sorry, Dad. I don't agree with you. I think a significant part of the value proposition of much of retail comes from our ability to deliver it cheap, quick, on time, intact, and exactly how I want it.
Mm-hmm. Well, to use your Willy Wonka, I think there's going to be companies that are going to Willy Wonka the consumer, meaning there's so much pressure for them to be good stewards of the world. They're just going to say, we don't offer that service anymore. And if your appetite for consumption is so voracious that you can't calm down and put it on your grocery list, then we don't want to service you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that the environmental impact is going to dictate when big companies are being audited and reminded and compliant with the global green footprint, carbon emissions.
My man.
So let's disagree, man. I'm cool with it. Say one side, I say the other. Doesn't happen very often.
How many corporations love to sit there and rail against this about what we're doing to the economy while their CEOs and C-suite jump around the world on a private jet? How many of these people from Hollywood love to trash talk us on cell phones that are made by labor making less than $1 a day, living in conditions that many of us find revolting? And how many of them drive electric cars, the guts of which are dug up by children that are treated in ways that we would find disgusting? And if I really want to go there, in a world of Verucas, be a Charlie. Be happy with very little. You're going to make the world a much better place. I don't think so, man.
All right.
I think what the market's going to say is, oh, you're telling me that if I want it environmentally safe and I want it right now, that it's going to be bad for the environment? I don't think so. That sounds like a you problem. All right. You need to figure that out, because if you don't, somebody else will. I'll give them my business. Work it out. And while you're at it, I need you to check every other woke box, because that's what makes me feel good while systematically destroying the earth. And to take a page out of George Carlin's book, the earth doesn't care what we do for it. The earth will simply crush us all and remove us from it and start afresh all over again. We are a disease, and it will take care of us with its own immune system. So I'll just let that sit for a little bit, buddy. In a world full of verrucas, be a Charlie. Tread lightly. Yeah. Enjoy your time here. Take as little as you can from it. Be a Charlie.
Wow. I love the kinder, gentler Pete. Your voice just got toned down. Yeah, man. You're happy. You got a big smile.
Hey. I love asking people with brand new T-shirts about reducing, reusing, and recycling, where they bought it, how much it cost, and why they felt the need to buy a bunch of crap they didn't need to virtue signal to the world that they're better than I am. Jackasses. Yeah. Right. On to halftime, buddy.
Yeah, fire away. You go.
Oh, hey, I got something nice to talk about for halftime. I do.
Bring it.
So it's graduation time all over the country in universities and high schools. And one of the things that makes me happy this time every year are these fantastic stories of people who are in their golden years, who have either decided to go back to their high school and finally graduate, either because they were unable to walk for whatever reason. See a lot of folks that, didn't graduate or didn't walk for graduation because they went off to Vietnam, they went off to war, they were unable to for whatever personal reason. People that dropped out of school when they were younger and had to go off and do whatever they had to do and never got a chance to actually finish high school. I love that. People that were young adults, never learned how to read, that now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, not only learned how to read, but went off to get degrees. And I particularly like these older people that have gotten college degrees. I love that. I absolutely love it. I love it when folks say in their older years, when they had more time, of all the things that they could have pursued, they decided to pursue knowledge. In a time when every time I turn around, I see people deciding just where they want to turn off our access to the truth, that there are still people with what little time is left on this earth. They decide to take that time to pursue knowledge, to pursue truth, to pursue just trying to find a way to make themselves a little more enlightened. I think that's beautiful. And I think we should celebrate it every way that we can. And I think that people who have a lot of time left on this earth could sort of take a page out of those people in their golden years book and, look for opportunities to better themselves academically, because it really is a beautiful feeling to know something, to learn it, to master it, and to always take those opportunities to learn in whatever form that leads you to.
I wouldn't say that you Casey Kasem'd me, but I think we should have planned a little bit better, and you should have done the halftime second, so we could end on a very positive note.
Oh, nice. I gotta tell a story about a guy's dog getting run over. Yeah, that's such a
but not quite. But you've probably heard a lot of talk this week about the Mona Lisa and some environmental activist, eco-terrorist maybe. I think Keenan made mention of that. Chucked a cake on the Mona Lisa over the weekend. The picture's in bulletproof glass, so everything's cool. A little smear on the cake, a little Windex takes care of that, and we're good to go. But it sparked my interest in the Mona Lisa in and of itself. So I'm just going to give some cool bullet points about the Mona Lisa, these cool points that I thought. So after the picture, I don't think was commissioned. Keenan and I were talking about this, but I think Picasso had finished it up and he gave it to the King of France, who was a buddy of his, and he stuck that picture in his bedroom.
You already made a mistake.
So it was in.
You already made a mistake.
What? Bring it.
It wasn't Picasso.
What is it?
It wasn't Picasso. You said Picasso.
Oh, I did? Da Vinci. Sorry. I don't know why I said Picasso. Thank you very much. Da Vinci, Leonardo. So hung in King of France's bathroom. Napoleon got a hold of it. And no, I'm screwing this up, Pete. You threw me for a wing. King of France and Napoleon had it. One guy had it in his bathroom. One guy had it in his bedroom. In 1911, after it made its way to the Louvre in France, it was stolen. I didn't realize this. So there was an employee that rolled in with his socks and threw it under his jacket and walked out with it. And he held it for 2 years. And the Picasso piece, Pete, he was a suspect. That the authorities thought Picasso may have something to do with it, and he was a suspect. So anyway, they got the painting back. It was put back in the museum. And then in the course of this century or the 20th century, we've had some guy in 1956 threw some rocks at it. And this is a classic 1956 a comment. He said that he had a stone in his pocket and suddenly had the urge to throw it. So first of all, who carries rocks in their pockets anymore? That was like a 1950s and 60s thing, but that was kind of weird. And then a few years later, there was a woman that chucked a teacup for some reason. And now that was in 2009. And then we got the cake smearer. So it's a weird story behind the Mona Lisa. I'm sure it will get weird. The thing I don't want to have happen, Pete, is they put it behind something and you won't be able to see it anymore because people do weird things to it. Yeah. So anyway, there's some trivia on the Mona Lisa.
I am going back to Europe a few times over the course of the next few months. I'm looking forward to going back to wonderful Paris and seeing the Louvre, and going to Paris and seeing Mona Lisa. To me, it is an entirely underwhelming piece of art. I don't care for it in the slightest.
Well, you'll have to give us the blow-by-blow, see if it has been repositioned or angled or taken away.
But when I read you were going to talk about this, I have a lot of things on my never going to happen bucket list. One of them is a heist. Like, I know it's never going to happen because of a lot of reasons, but like an Ocean's 11 level heist, like those movies where everybody has a specialty. You know, you got like the lock guy, the one that does the disguises, the getaway driver, the safe breaker, you know. For one thing, I have none of those skills. None of them. Second of all of my friends, if put in a situation to do this, we would all talk. None of us could keep this thing secret. And second of all, we're all clumsy. Nobody could get away with this. But the idea of, you know, all of us getting together and, you know, having that, like, it's all, everybody set your watch, you know, and all that stuff. That just seems like it would be kind of cool to pull off. But I'm far too Catholic. The guilt would overwhelm me. And the idea of doing it would be pretty cool. But I read about, you know, the Stuart Gardner theft that happened here in Boston. They never recovered the paintings. They've never caught who did it. And it was worth like some crazy billions of dollars worth of art that was stolen. That blows me away. But as far as the Mona Lisa, man, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of those paintings and I'm just like, whatever. But I'll see Picasso and it blows me away. I'll see Van Gogh stuff. Maybe it's because I did a lot of drugs in high school. I think that might be perpetually, you know, but the Sistine Chapel
Picasso specifically,
and I've seen a lot of Van Gogh's work in other places, and it blows me away. So maybe it's just that particular one. And I always thought that there was speculation that it might have been Da Vinci's lover. You know, that it was, you know, somebody. It wasn't even a woman. That the model was one of Da Vinci's lovers, and that's who he did. But I don't know, you know, so. I'm sure maybe we'll get some comments from people about it. And maybe some folks will tell me that I'm an uncultured oaf for not seeing the artistic importance and brilliance of the Mona Lisa. So there you have it, buddy.
Yeah. Well, that adds to the lore. All those things you spoke about makes the picture more and more.
I couldn't paint it.
Of interest.
So. I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Before we jump into the second half, we always got to make sure that folks know that Keenan and Cap Logistics, we wouldn't be talking to each other. This wouldn't be on out there to the world without those guys. So caplogistics.com. You have transportation logistics needs, head to that website.
Before we started, you know,
Keenan,
of course, had to say that he was, you know, he knew all these things about the Mona Lisa. Of course he did. Like, of course, Keenan is like all into art history, and you know, you just know that he goes home and he puts his dirty feet up on his coffee table and crunches granola while he drinks his kombucha and has conversations about go gone with his girlfriend, and then like, oh, it's time that he was embarrassed, and all that pretentious stuff. They do what they do. All right, but I'll get to my second topic here. So very recently, I was looking at I want to make sure I get all these numbers right here. I was looking at a fascinating new development in American trade policy. America is now the single largest trading partner for India. We eclipsed China. And that happened without us having a free trade agreement with India. So although the United States has a one-way free trade policy under GSP that is constantly being suspended, we've managed to find a way to be India's largest trading partner going in the other direction without a duty-free suspension, tariff suspension. And China had always been for quite some time. Now we have a free trade agreement called IPEF, IPEF, which is a collection of countries, including Japan, Australia, the United States. And the idea is to come up with a sort of a defense against China being the dominant Asian Pacific trading bloc inside of that part of the world. And it also allows us to argue against the TPP. And can we draw countries away from the TPP now that China, of course, is dripping into that to make it less important? Possibly it can. What I found fascinating about this is that America has been pressuring India by less Russian oil because of what's going on in Ukraine. Seems like that might have been something we could have leveraged against India. Maybe you could stop buying oil from Russia before we signed this thing, but we didn't. There was too much politically, too much, hay that could have been bailed to have gotten from this. And India is buying as much petroleum as they possibly can from Russia, buying it as quickly as they can and distilling it as fast as they can to use it in India and in that subcontinent, in that area, and reselling it. It was a golden opportunity that the Biden administration could have used to leverage India and, in effect, possibly even China to have actually taken a blow against Russia, and they chose not to do it. I think we missed a real opportunity here, buddy, in the name of politics rather than trade.
Yeah. Well, two things on that. Number one, it's a horrible acronym. I don't know where IPEF comes from, IPEFP. If they want something catchy, Pete, they got to call me. So if any of our listeners know anybody that knows anybody at the White House that needs to come up with some crazy names that has a good acronym, I'm your guy. That one sucks, but I get it. The second thing that caught my attention, you just mentioned at the very end there, in the top 5 imports into India, 2 of them are precious metals. One's gold and some other things of that nature. But 1, 3, and 5 is crude oil, petroleum products, and coal, which means they are hungry for energy. It's just interesting that none of those are renewable. And so those were the 2 things that caught my attention. It's the worst acronym of all time. Please call me. I can fix that. And that 3 of the top 5 are related to energy.
Doug, I just have this vision in my mind of like one of those movie montages where there's, some great 80s rock song in the background. And there's just these quick flashes of videos of you in different scenes around Colorado. And you're just like thoughtfully thinking to yourself about what's the right acronym. And you've got, at one point, like you're chewing on the end of a pen, and then you're thinking distantly with the Rockies behind you in another. And then in another, like, you're on the ski lift with your hat on and your goggles above your head. And then like, you're like, oh yeah. And then you get off the chairlift and you write it down on your phone and you like zip down,
Yeah, that's very true. That happens very frequently. You forgot the one where I always like to look down at my watch because I'm focused on time. And that
you're like, I got to get it before the release. So. Yeah. The video musical montage of Doug trying to get to the bottom of his acronym for the USTR before President Biden gets to Tokyo. Yeah, totally. I can see that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even kidding that. Anybody knows anybody that knows it, if you got a guy that knows a guy,
call this guy.
Seriously, I'll write him up. Yeah, call me. I'm not even jacking around.
It's all good, bro.
So, all right, man. I'm gonna take us home real quick. This one is. I just saw that Stephen Lyons, who is a former military retired gentleman, is now the port and supply chain envoy for the new supply chain disruptions task force that was created last June. So it's been around for a year. Couple key things they rolled out in December was the truck action plan, which was trying to increase recruitment for drivers. They talked about pop-up container yards. These were three very specific things that were rolled out on a press release in December from the White House. Truck action plan, the recruitment of drivers, pop-up container yards. And this one just makes me laugh. A data sharing initiative. And see, this is what I'm talking about right now. Freight logistics optimization work. That's called flow. That's the shit I'm talking about, Pete. That works. So whoever that guy is or gal that wrote that, I want to hang out with them. But the funny thing is that in the big picture, they haven't really done a whole lot. That press release was in December, so that pretty much gives us 5 months. And in that time, the Biden administration has basically said they've leveraged 50% drop in container dwell times at Los Angeles, improved the number of container ships waiting outside of U.S. ports. Goods are successfully being delivered to shelves at record pace and all this kind of stuff. So it seems like there's a lot of fluff and smoke and mirrors around it. I'm not against it, but I think it's more fluff and spin doctrine than anything. And the likely assumption that the government can bring technology better than the private sector to help with visibility and flow of data is comical to me. But anyway, it's been a year. I'm not sure there's many boxes we can check, but they're certainly taking credit for some natural occurrences that are starting to trend in loosening of the supply chain craziness. Yeah. That was my take. Good luck to everybody over there, but I don't see a whole lot of stuff really happening.
If you let Keenan come over to your place and take a shower every day for 2 months, and then you say, hey, listen, I really want to say that we're all amazed that the drains are all clogged. And we weren't expecting this outcome. You're an idiot. You should know exactly what's going to happen. And this is pretty clear. Keenan's a very hairy beast of a man. He's a walking, talking Yeti. And you should expect that all of your drains will be clogged if he comes over. The man generates two things: excellent video content and hair. So you're going to have clogged drains. The idea that the entire industry is focused on lowering dwell time, doing something about demurrage and detention and accessorials, trying to find a way to deal with their empties and their loaded containers, and that it was the government that made it better. I got a finger right now. I'm extending it. You can't see it on camera right now, but it's kind of pointed towards all the buffoons that thought they had something to do with it. I will say this. The government is running around trying to find some way to get them better. But what they shouldn't do is take credit for things that they were not directly involved in. I applaud the fact that they are trying. I applaud the fact that they are doing everything they can to be involved. What is not genuine and what I think is actually going to end up backfiring on them is taking too much credit for things that they were not even involved in. Because this industry has a way of not forgetting that. And they're not going to invite them in next time when they know that they're just going to end up taking credit for things that they weren't a part of. That's a problem, buddy. It's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we ended with an agreement. We started with a disagreement. Now we end with an agreement. So all is right in the world.
That Keenan is a very, very hairy man. So thanks so much, Doug, as always, for being the tango to my cash. And thank you again, as always, to the good people at Cap Logistics, without whom none of our fun and exciting times every week could be brought to you. Thank you, of course, to Keenan, who, when he is not growing a luxurious mane of hair, is on with us, finding ways to bring you content and giving us an opportunity of not what we know is happening, but what we think will happen in the world of trade, logistics, and global economics. Doug, love it, man. every single week. It just gets better and better.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you next week. Looking forward to seeing all of you. Thanks again, pal.
Yep. Excellent. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, everybody.